When the footage finally surfaced, the city of Chicago froze. It wasn't just another viral video of an officer crossing the line. It was something far darker. It showed a man in uniform doing the unthinkable. And what made it worse was that the one who exposed it was an outsider. It was one of their own. When police first entered that dim apartment on the south side, they expected to find evidence of a hacker, someone illegally spying on law enforcement. But instead, they found cameras, hundreds of hours of footage, and one terrified officer who had risked everything to capture the truth. This is a story of how one cop tried to expose corruption within his own department and nearly paid for it with his life. A story buried beneath reports, denied by officials, and whispered about only behind closed doors. Until now, please comment where you are watching us from, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notification. In 2021, Detective Ryan Hale had been with the Chicago Police Department for nearly 11 years. He wasn't a rookie, and he wasn't naive. He'd seen the good, the bad, and the unspeakable that came with the badge. Ryan had built a reputation as the kind of officer who kept his head down and did the job right. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't political. But he had a quiet sense of justice that made him respected by some and quietly hated by others. He worked out of District 8, a gritty stretch of the South Side, where shootings were common and trust in police was thin. Most nights, Ryan and his partner, Officer James O'Neill, would respond to calls that rarely made the news. Domestic disputes, break-ins, noise complaints. But in early 2021, something started to change inside the department. A new lieutenant took command, Lieutenant Marcus Boyd. Boyd was charismatic, confident, and sharp, the kind of man who could walk into any room and instantly take control. But beneath that charm was something else, a kind of quiet menace that Ryan couldn't ignore. At first, it was small things, reports going missing, cases mysteriously closed before evidence had been processed, and whispers from other officers about Boyd running a kind of off-the-books enforcement unit. Ryan didn't want to believe it, not until one night when he saw it for himself. It was a humid July evening. Ryan and O'Neill were responding to what sounded like a routine domestic disturbance, a noise complaint at an apartment complex near Englewood. When they arrived, 2 other units were already there, and to Ryan's surprise, Lieutenant Boyd himself was on scene. Body cam footage later showed Ryan walking into the hallway, the air thick with tension. Inside the apartment, a man in his 20s nervously, hands raised, was pleading that he'd done nothing wrong. Boyd wasn't listening. Instead, he was searching the man's place without a warrant. Ryan saw it, so did the other officers. But what happened next was worse. Boyd found a small bag of drugs clearly planted, though no one said it aloud. He turned to Ryan and said, quietly, "Write it up." He resisted. Ryan froze. He didn't write it. He couldn't. And that's when he realized a man standing beside him. His commanding officer wasn't enforcing the law. He was controlling it. That night haunted him. Ryan went home, opened his laptop, and began writing notes, dates, times, badge numbers, small inconsistencies. He didn't know what he was building yet, but he knew he couldn't stay silent. By September 2021, Ryan had gathered enough to know Boyd's special unit was more than rumor. They operated late nights, sometimes in unmarked cars, targeting suspects who never made it to booking. Complaints against them were dismissed before review. The victims vanished. Ryan couldn't trust internal affairs, not when Boyd seemed to have friends everywhere. So he decided to go outside the system. He began installing hidden cameras in the department, one behind a vent in the evidence locker, another disguised as a coffee maker in the briefing room, and, most daringly, a small pinhole lens hidden inside a patrol car dashboard, one that Boyd frequently used. He knew the risks. Surveillance without authorization could get him fired or even arrested, but he wasn't after gossip. He was after proof. Weeks turned into months, and then one night, the cameras caught something that made Ryan's blood run cold. It was 2:14 a.m. on a Friday in November. The hidden camera in the unmarked patrol car had been recording for nearly 4 hours when Boyd and 2 other officers arrived at closed warehouse on the city's west side. The audio was faint, just the hum of the car engine and the murmur of voices. Then a door opened, a man screamed, a thud. When Ryan replayed the footage the next morning, what he saw didn't seem real. Boyd and the others were interrogating a man off the record, off the books. There were no forms, no evidence chain, no witnesses. Just Boyd's voice saying, "Nobody's gonna miss you if you talk." Ryan froze the frame. The timestamp showed it was during Boyd's shift, but the call log showed no record of any stop or arrest. He copied the footage onto an encrypted drive and stored it in a safety deposit box. He didn't yet know who to trust, but he knew someone was going to die if he stayed silent. 2 weeks later, Ryan came into work to find his desk cleaned out. No explanation, no transfer notice, just gone. That night, he got a call from an unknown number. A voice said, "Stop digging. It's bigger than you." Then the line went dead. Ryan realized he was being watched. His phone acted strange. His car alarm would go off in the middle of the night. He found footprints near his back door. He began sleeping with the lights on. By Christmas, Ryan was paranoid but determined. He confided in only one person, a local crime reporter named Elena Cruz, who had covered police corruption cases before. He sent her a small clip of footage, just enough to prove it was real. She didn't hesitate. She told him to meet her the next day at a diner off Roosevelt Road. He never made it. On December 22nd, 2021, Ryan's car was found abandoned under the I-90 overpass. His service weapon was missing, so was his laptop. Inside the trunk was a police jacket and a broken dash camera. The department issued a statement saying he'd gone AWOL. Friends said that was impossible. Ryan had a spotless record and no history of mental health issues. Elena Cruz, the reporter, tried to reach the lieutenant for comment. Boyd refused. Within a week, Elena's email stopped working. Her phone glitched, and her editor warned her to let it go. Then, out of nowhere, an anonymous package arrived at her office. No return address. Inside was a flash drive labeled simply District 8. When she plugged it in, it was full of video files. Hundreds of them, each labeled by date. And one titled only, The Warehouse. The video began with static. Then, the grainy interior of a warehouse came into view. Concrete floor, fluorescent lights. Boyd stood in frame, arms crossed, watching two other officers rough up a man with zip ties around his wrists. The man was bleeding, begging. He said something about evidence and a hard drive. Then Boyd pulled out a gun. There was a flash. The screen went black. Elena stared at the laptop, horrified. She knew this was beyond a corruption story now. This was murder. She backed up every file and contacted a trusted source in the Attorney General's office. But before she could deliver the drive, her apartment was broken into. The laptop was stolen. And within 48 hours, Elena Cruz vanished. By early 2022, the Chicago PD quietly announced that both Officer Hale and journalist Cruz were missing under unclear circumstances. The case files were sealed. Boyd was promoted, but whispers spread within the department, in late-night bars, in forums frequented by ex-cops and whistleblowers. Someone out there claimed to have the original hidden camera footage, and someone was leaking pieces of it online a few seconds at a time under the name Truth in Blue. One video showed Boyd planting evidence. Another captured a brutal off-the-record interrogation. And the third, the most chilling, showed Ryan Hale setting up a camera in the precinct's evidence room, looking directly into the lens and saying, "If you're watching this, it means they found me." When those clips surfaced on Reddit and Twitter, Chicago erupted. Local news outlets scrambled to verify them. Officials called them deep fakes. But forensic analysts confirmed the metadata was real. The public demanded answers. The mayor promised an internal review. But those who knew the system understood what that meant: delay, denial, and deflection. Then came the leak that no one could ignore. A complete 12-minute video, time-stamped the night Ryan disappeared. It showed him leaving his apartment, looking nervous, glancing over his shoulder. A black SUV followed him down the street. The last frame showed flashing lights in the distance and a faint reflection of someone familiar in the windshield. Lieutenant Boyd. Months passed. The footage dominated headlines. Protests filled the streets. and the city's faith in its police force hit rock bottom. Then, in April 2022, construction workers demolishing an old warehouse on the west side discovered a sealed storage room. Inside were several boxes of old evidence and one metal container. Inside the container was a phone. It was Ryan Hale's. The phone was damaged, but its SD card survived. And what investigators found on it stunned them. There were hours of footage of it, not just of Boyd's crimes, but of meetings, secret briefings with city officials, money being exchanged, and names judges, prosecutors, politicians. Ryan hadn't just exposed a bad cop. He had uncovered an entire web of corruption. The story leaked again. The city exploded once more. Boyd disappeared before he could be arrested, and that's when something truly strange happened. 2 weeks after Boyd vanished, a new anonymous video appeared on the same Truth in Blue account. It showed a dimly lit room, a figure sitting in the shadows, and a voice calm, tired, familiar saying, "They think I'm dead, but the cameras are still rolling." The screen cut to black. To this day, no one knows who runs the Truth in Blue account. The IP address is traced to multiple states. Some say Ryan survived and went underground. Others believe someone close to him, maybe Elena, continuing to release the footage in his name. What is certain is that the files he recorded changed everything. Half a dozen officers were fired. 2 city officials resigned. And the public's trust, already fragile, was shattered. Yet still, there are pieces missing. Files referenced in Ryan's notes that have never surfaced. Moments on tape that were clearly edited out. The question remains who's still protecting Boyd, and how deep does this go? Because as new leaks keep surfacing, one thing is becoming clear. Someone is still watching. Someone is still recording. And somewhere out there, the rest of Ryan Hale's story is waiting to be told. If this story shook you, make sure to subscribe to Cold Case Secrets, where we uncover the truth behind the world's darkest mysteries. Thank you for watching Cold Case Secrets.